On Saturday afternoon, I sat in my car with my family listening to the Dodgers on the radio, bottom of the ninth inning, trying to close out a 9-4 victory over the Tigers. Hit the Wendy's drive through, and as they handed me my drinks, a large Dr. Pepper tipped, spilled all over me, soaked in Dr. Pepper. As it turned out, that was the best thing that happened Saturday afternoon. Lousy weekend for the Dodgers. We're going to dig into it, but good news about Clayton Kershaw. Interesting news about the draft. A lot to talk about. So let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for being with us every weekday morning, and thanks to those of you who are live with me here on Sunday evening, July 14th. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And you can become an everydayer and make that easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And, jumping right in, this was a lousy weekend for the Dodgers. No sugarcoating it. The funny thing is, it was a few good pitches away from being a really, really good weekend for the Dodgers. The Dodgers started the series by having an impressive comeback win over the Tigers on Friday, showed some fight after getting swept by the Phillies. It's like, oh, sweet, this team is still there. And then Saturday kind of dominated the game and up 9-4 in the ninth inning. Like, hey, let's get Ricky Vanasco in the game. Yeah, that worked out great. Ricky Vanasco came in. By the time he left, 2 runs had scored. No, 1 run had scored. 2 other guys were on base. All 3 guys that he faced got on base. Evan Phillips came in, allowed another one of Ricky Vanasco's runs to score, and then gave up a game-tying 2-run homer. And then in the 10th inning, Yohan Ramirez gave up a walk-off 2-run homer to Gio Urshela. So I believe it was when the Dodgers had their big comeback win against the Rockies earlier this year. I believe it was 9-4 in the 9th inning, and the Dodgers ended up winning 11-9. Same scores here, unfortunately. On the other side of things, the Tigers winning 11-9. And so then on Sunday, Dodgers go up. They score 3 runs in the first inning, all with 2 outs, two out RBI hits, and then Andy Pages steals home on the back end of a double steal attempt. And you think, oh, sweet. And then the offense didn't do anything the rest of the game. No more runs scored. The Tigers kept chipping away. And then Yohan Ramirez again, this time in the 9th inning, the sequence went leadoff triple, game-tying single, sacrifice bunt that Ramirez makes an error on, sacrifice bunt that Ramirez makes an error on, game over. Just a garbage game. But like when you think about it, if Ricky Vanasco or Evan Phillips makes a better pitch or 2 in the 9th inning on Saturday, Dodgers win that game. That's a game absolutely they should have won. There's no excuse for that. And then Sunday's game, even with not scoring after the first inning, Dodgers were ahead in the 9th inning. And I guess we need to talk about the pitching decisions, because the fact is Yohan Ramirez was in the game when Alex Vesia had been warming up. Zach McKinstry led off the 9th inning with the triple. He's a left-handed hitter. So you think, well, why not use Alex Vesia? I think the decision, this is one of those things, a really good example of what I've talked about when I say there's not really right and wrong decisions a lot of the time that managers make. This one, yes, they had Alex Vesia ready. Everybody on the Tigers bench is right-handed in this game. It was Javi Baez. It was Justin Henry Malloy. I always think of the Wizards of Waverly Place when I hear that guy's name, because the older brother Justin was played by a guy named David Henry. So I hear Justin and Henry, and I think of Wizards of Waverly Place. Anyway, maybe that's just me. And then they had Jake Rogers, I think, was on the bench, and Javi Baez. Did I say Javi Baez already? Anyway, they had 4 right-handers. I can't remember who the 4th one was, but everybody on their bench was right-handed. So if the Dodgers do bring in Vesia, the Tigers pinch hit for McKinstry. And the fact is, McKinstry hasn't been good this year. And so I think what it came down to was we would rather face Zach McKinstry than those options on the bench. And then the other thing is, and this part makes a lot of sense to me, Alex Vesia was their last available reliever. Daniel Hudson was down. Like they didn't say before the game who all was available going into a bullpen game, but it was pretty clear some guys weren't going to be available. Daniel Hudson was the guy who people thought would be available because he only pitched twice this week, but it turns out he's been having a nagging back because he's a Dodgers pitcher. So of course something's certain. And so they didn't have anybody else except Alex Vesia, and you kind of have to plan for the possibility of extra innings. And so if they bring in Vesia there, Vesia either has to finish the game, or the Dodgers, if it does go to extra innings, Dodgers have to punt. So yeah, maybe you go with Vesia there because he is the better pitcher. Also, Vesia has pitched a ton too. I think a lot of it, and this might not make people happy, I think the mindset was probably, let's just roll with Ramirez, win or lose with Yohan Ramirez. And honestly, I think obviously the Dodgers would have preferred win, but I think I would guess once the Tigers scored the tying run, I don't think anybody on the Dodgers was heartbroken to just lose in 9 innings instead of going to extra innings, honestly. And so, you can quibble with that, but the fact is the Tigers were trying to get out on purpose, and Yohan Ramirez just refused to let them, just kicking the ball around, throwing the ball around. It was an ugly game after he gave up a 2-run walk-off homer the day before. Not a stellar weekend for Yohan Ramirez. And, I don't think it's a backbreaker for him. I do think he still has value on this team. For me, the big point that this underscored for me was the Dodgers need to get a healthy bullpen, get a more solid rotation, because right now, like, Yohan Ramirez shouldn't be pitching in high leverage situations, at least not this high leverage. Yohan Ramirez should be pitching in much lower leverage situations, and that hasn't been a possibility lately because of the way the games have been going. Because the starters aren't going deep in games, because there are other relievers who, Ricky Vanasco is worse. Michael Peterson probably isn't currently a big league pitcher, even though he's currently on a big league roster pitching. There's different. Ryan Yarbrough. I mean, don't get me started on Ryan Yarbrough. Like I have nothing against Ryan Yarbrough except for the fact that he's not very good at pitching, and I would like somebody who's good at pitching. Yeah, I'm done with him. All in all, it's just it's a rough situation for Ramirez, who shouldn't be in those situations. And so Dodgers starting pitchers stepping up, getting healthy relievers back, all those things will help get Ramirez back in a situation where he can pitch in the 6th inning or 7th inning of a 5-1 game or something like that, where it's not, 9th inning game on the line, those things, or even 10th inning. That's my thoughts on Ramirez. Like, it wasn't too long ago that I thought I kind of like this Dodgers bullpen, and a lot of the guys are still the same, but I'm going to come back. I'm going to talk about Evan Phillips, and I'm going to take an ad break. Then I'm going to come back and talk about Evan Phillips, because there are some concerns there. And you guys know how much I love Evan Phillips. He's, after Kershaw, like, Evan Phillips is one of my favorite players. He's been on this podcast. Great interview, great, nice guy. I have concerns about Evan Phillips. I'm going to talk about when I come back. And then we'll dig into, other stuff that happened this weekend besides this crappy series. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it locked on. Hold on, I clicked the wrong window. Now, please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about other team cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in a rival team city. If a city has a big league team, it also has great places to stay. I book great hotels in almost every MLB city in America, and Booking.com makes that so much easier. From hotels that overlook stadiums, that one in Colorado is awesome. Literally across the street from Coors Field, it's great. Or to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. This episode is also brought to you by Supply House. Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple clicks at supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. Need help with an order? Get industry-leading after-sales service from their friendly and knowledgeable customer support team and talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. Trade industry professionals can join their free Trademaster program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the Trademaster program to deliver results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/T-M. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Hey, I am back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being an everydayer. If you are an everydayer, if you're not, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. You make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. You can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing everything you want to know in the world of sports, or specifically the LA world of sports if you prefer. Locked On Sports LA is where you can find the Locked On Dodgers postcast, hosted by Pete Fox after most Dodger games. Also, remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app just by searching for Dodgers. No Dodger games for a few days. It's mercifully the All-Star break. It is, it couldn't have come at a better time, honestly. The Dodgers limped into the All-Star break, and yet they're 7 games up in their division. And obviously winning the division isn't the goal, but getting to the playoffs is the first step of the ultimate goal. It's if you can't win the World Series if you don't make the playoffs, and the Dodgers are still in very, very good position to make the postseason, to the point where, the Dodgers are for sure going to make the postseason, almost for sure going to win the division, and still have a decent chance at one of the top 2 seeds. Now, we could argue about whether or not that's what they want. Maybe they want the 3 seed. I still think you'd prefer to be one of the top 2 seeds, have a bye. I think you'd rather have the challenge of figuring out how to stay fresh for 4 days than the challenge of having to play a wild card series. That's what I believe. I think 2 years is way too short a time to declare that the layoff is the reason the Dodgers have lost the last 2 years, especially because, other teams, the Astros won the World Series 2 years ago when they had the bye. It doesn't kill everybody. And so, I think Dodgers are in good shape still. You wouldn't know it by the way they've played the last, 7 games. They're 1-6, I think. And, one of the things I mentioned going to break, a little bit of concern about Evan Phillips. And Evan Phillips is awesome. I'm a huge Evan Phillips fan. His season ERA is up to 2.73 now. And his splits are really where I'm concerned. He gave up the 2-run homer to what's his name, Colt Keith, to tie the game in the 9th inning on Saturday, and that was continuing a trend so far this year. Left-handed batters, all 4 home runs that Evan Phillips has allowed this year have been the left-handed batters. Lefties are batting 298 with a 596 slugging percentage against Evan Phillips this year. It's a 961 OPS. That's like MVP contender. 961. I would guess that's right around where Bryce Harper's season OPS is right now. Let's see. Bryce Harper is at 983. So lefties against Evan Phillips so far this year are hitting almost as well as Bryce Harper this year. It hasn't always been that way. And that's the thing that is weird to me because Evan Phillips, the last couple of years, has been solid. He's been better against right-handed pitchers, but not to an extreme amount. Last year, lefties had a 662 OPS against him. 2022, 449. Like 449, like that's elite. In 2022, left-handed hitters were like both sets, right and left, against Evan Phillips were terrible. 413 against right-handers, 449 against left-handers. Just dominant. So Evan Phillips has the stuff to be good against left-handed pitchers, which is good news and bad, or left-handed hitters, which is good news and bad news. The good news is the stuff seems to still be good. The bad news is, why isn't it working? And if the Dodgers, they have a lot of smart pitching people. Obviously, Phillips takes great pride in his work as a pitcher. If they can figure it out, that's awesome, because that is low-hanging fruit where they can improve. Kenny says that Phillips made a pretty good pitch. Keith just made contact. You know what? That I'm not disagreeing with that, but it also really doesn't matter, because a pitch that gets hit over the wall, almost by definition, isn't a good pitch, because it might look like a good pitch to us, but to Colt Keith, it looked like a pitch that he could hit over the fence. It was the first pitch of the bat. He jumped on it. He ambushed it. You're not going to swing at a pitcher's pitch when you're ambushing and hit it over the wall. And so it might have looked like a good pitch to us, but something about it. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, that for some reason, even though the stuff is still basically the same, for some reason, Evan Phillips isn't having the success against lefties that he's had in the past. And that's the thing that concerns me right now. But also, and maybe it's just because I am annoyingly optimistic, for me, it really does. It screams to me, there's something that's going to get better, because there's no obvious reason why Phillips is bad against lefties. And so I feel like that's going to regress to the mean, or progress to the mean in this case, that he is going to get better against lefties, because I still think fundamentally he is good against lefties, still has the same stuff. So that's one of those things when you look at it, Mookie Betts coming back, that will be an improvement. Freddie Freeman, I think, is going to hit better than he has overall this first half. He's had really good stretches. His batting average is back down around 290 now, heading into the All-Star break. He's probably going to get better. There are guys who I think are going to get better. There's also guys who, as we've talked about, I don't necessarily think are going to get better. And that's where the Dodgers team is going to get better, by making moves at the trade deadline, whatever those moves are. It's one of the most pivotal trade deadlines in recent Dodgers history. The Dodgers hardly ever go into the trade deadline with huge needs like they have right now. I don't think you could even get everybody to agree on what those needs are. Do they need a bullpen arm? You know what? One way to make Evan Phillips better against lefties is trade for Tanner Scott. Let him pitch against those lefties. There's ways to improve the bullpen on the trade market. There's ways to improve the starting rotation, which I think is important. There's ways to improve the offense, which I think is critical, vital, absolute necessity to do some addition by addition and some addition by subtraction. As I've said many times, there is no reason for Chris Taylor and Kike Hernandez to both be on this roster. And the fact is, right now, Chris Taylor is probably the better hitter and the better fielder. And so Kike Hernandez, thanks for the memories again. That's my opinion. Gavin Lux, I still believe Gavin Lux is going to be a good hitter in Major League Baseball. But as I've said, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think he's going to show little flashes here and there, but I don't think that Gavin Lux is going to be a good big league hitter this year. So that needs to be replaced. That not knowing what's going on with Max Muncy, so much going on at this trade deadline. And we'll see what happens, but it is pretty pivotal. That's kind of my thoughts on the weekend, the first half in general, I don't like calling it the first half because it's way more than half. First half ended a couple weeks ago. But the pre-All-Star break that people call the first half, for as crappy as things have been, I always think back to my 1988 Dodgers video, Through the Eyes of a Winner. You guys seen that? All the music is by Glenn Frey, I think, from the Eagles. And at one point in the summer, the Dodgers are playing terribly, and Glenn Frey's singing, "Gotta do some soul searching." And I was looking at, like, the Dodgers had a couple really bad stretches in '88 where it's like uh, they went from 3 games up to a game and a half back in 10 days in May, which included getting swept by the Mets and getting swept by the Pirates, and just, some crappy stuff. And then in July, Dodgers went from 8 games up to only half a game up in about 3 weeks. Like, some really rough times. And obviously nobody cares about 88 anymore, other than, like, obviously it's a great season in Dodger history, won the World Series and stuff, but the Dodgers didn't have to win that World Series. And so you can't just say, well, 88 team went through this and they still won the World Series, because I'd rather have a better team than the 88 team was. The 88 team got lucky winning that World Series, which is fine. That's how teams win the World Series, is getting lucky and getting hot at the right time and all those things. That's what the Dodgers did in 88. And so that's kind of my underlying point, that every World Series team you look at, if you looked at their game by game, most of the time, there's going to be stretches like this where you think, man, this team sucks. And then yet they get hot at the right time in October. That's what I'm hoping for. And the next couple of weeks, the Dodgers can help their chances of getting hot in October by getting better players, because better players get hot more often than worse players. #science. I'm going to come back in a minute. I'm going to talk about the other stuff that happened this weekend, Clayton Kershaw news, Dustin May news, and the Dodgers first round draft picks. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets can be frustrating. Whether it's a Dodger game, some other sporting event, a concert, a comedy show, or whatever, it can be a major pain to not know how good the seats are, whether you're getting the best price, all that headache. But Game Time takes that headache away. With their seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And with the Game Time guarantee, you're guaranteed the best price on your tickets. That's right. If you find seats in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You can also use Game Time's last minute deals to save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Just like I did 2 weeks ago to go see George Strait, of all people. Got great last minute tickets, great seats, great price on Game Time. I've used Game Time a bunch, several times when I've gone to LA for Dodger games. Also when I went Sunday at Bargatze here in Salt Lake last year. And like I said, George Strait a couple weeks ago. And because I don't always trust everything I hear, I've put the Game Time guarantee to the test and checked all the other ticket sites to see if I could find tickets cheaper. But I'm sold, because Game Time was easily the least expensive tickets I could find. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Hey friends, I am back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Thanks for being here with me live. If you are, I appreciate it. It was kind of short notice. Vince is very busy with his day job. All-Star weekend. He is in Texas covering all that, covering the Futures game this weekend, covering the draft, so much more, the All-Star red carpet, all that stuff, plus the Home Run Derby tomorrow, All-Star game on Tuesday. So we're going to try to get Vince in here with us this week, but we'll see what happens. But I didn't know until late this evening whether Vince would be with me. And so a little bit late notice, and yet a bunch of you have shown up active in the chat. Appreciate that. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and you can make that easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching and listening right now. Also, please check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube. And remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app. And also, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Our insiders this weekend didn't get a ton of action from us because I was on a little staycation with my family, as I mentioned. I did most of in fact, almost all of my Friday and Saturday Dodger consumption was on the radio, not on the television. And it's fun to listen on the radio sometimes. Sunday's game I did get to watch on TV, but a lot of the news that was going on over the weekend, I wasn't active on Twitter for most of the weekend because I was with my family, and so. But we did send across a couple updates to our insiders, including the fact that Dustin May is out for the season. It's kind of weird. His arm injury was recovering. His Tommy John surgery. It was looking like he was going to be back this season. Possibly could have been a big addition to the bullpen with that arm, and yet then he suffered a freak injury. Apparently, eating. He tore his esophagus. Had to have surgery. Ended up being kind of serious, and so he's fine now. He's going to recover completely, apparently, but he is done for the season. They have shut him down pitching wise, which, for his long-term health, maybe that's better, than trying to rush back. But obviously bad news for him and for the Dodgers, who were all hoping that he could maybe contribute to the bullpen this year. That's a bummer. Better news on Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw pitched a rehab start with Oklahoma City the other night, pitched really well, was pretty dominant, and came out of it feeling well. And Dave Roberts said that he will make another rehab start, I believe, on Friday for Oklahoma City. And then it's supposed to go 5 innings. If that goes well, and if he feels well after, he might be back with the Dodgers after that. That's good news for him. Good news for the Dodgers, even just for numbers. The fact is, Clayton Kershaw will almost assuredly be better than James Paxton is, and probably better than Justin Robleski currently is. I've been impressed with Robleski. He's looked solid, but there's still, you can tell he was kind of forced into action. We also found out that River Ryan is going to be called up sometime soon. After the All-Star break, we didn't get timing, so we don't know if it's going to be for this first series against the Red Sox next weekend or shortly after that. But River Ryan will be in the rotation, or at least making a start or two for the Dodgers. We'll see what the logistics all look like. But all kind of good news there, exciting stuff for the Dodgers rotation. If you're a big Clayton Kershaw fan like me, always happy to see him back in Dodger blue. And he looked really good. Watching video of him pitching in Oklahoma City, he looked really, really good. So that's good news as far as I'm concerned. And then the last little bit of news this weekend was the first round of the draft happened on Sunday. The draft is still ongoing. The Dodgers will make 17 more draft picks. They don't get a second round pick or a fifth round pick this year, but they have third and fourth rounds and then 6th through 20th rounds. So I think that's 17 more picks they have to make. But their first pick was a shortstop, a young high school shortstop named Kellon Lindsey. And it was kind of a surprising pick to a lot of people. I'm not a draft guru. I don't know specifics about a lot of the players, the big names in college. I know some of those things, but I do understand draft mechanics pretty well. And the fact is, like, Craig is asking, why did the Dodgers draft a 17-year-old shortstop? And if I was running a draft, I would probably draft 90% either pitchers or shortstops. We've seen it with the Padres' approach to building a major league team. You draft a shortstop, he can end up playing anywhere. Chipper Jones, Hall of Fame third baseman, drafted as a shortstop. Every good infielder you can think of probably used to be a shortstop. Mookie Betts played shortstop in high school. They're all shortstops. And so you draft shortstops because, I saw somebody in a chat I was in saying the Dodgers should have gone after a college first baseman, somebody who's, who can fill in for Freddie in a couple of years when Freddie's done playing. And you're never going to draft a first baseman in the first round. They just don't. First basemen don't really get drafted in the first round unless they are just crazy good hitters, crazy good elite hitters. Because if you are already a first baseman in high school or even in college, there's nowhere else to go defensively. You think Ernie Banks, Hall of Fame shortstop Ernie Banks, spent more of his career as a first baseman than as a shortstop, but he moved to first base halfway through his major league career. If you're already a first baseman, that means that you generally don't have, the Dodgers drafted Michael Busch as a first baseman out of college in the first round, but then they immediately moved him to second base. They drafted him because they didn't see him as a first baseman. And so shortstop, absolutely great idea, draft shortstop. This particular shortstop, Kellon Lindsey, crazy fast. The comps that are, probably optimistic comps that people are making are Trey Turner. Crazy fast. They say 80 grade speed, which is literally, as fast as you can get. Second year in a row. Last year it was Kendall George. This year it's Kellon Lindsey. Like elite speed. And they think that as he grows into his power, he might develop 15 to 20 home run power. That's not quite Trey Turner power. But the thing we know about the Dodgers is that their player development system is pretty darn good. And so I suspect the Dodgers see something in Kellon Lindsey that they think that they can get more out of his bat. So if he is a good defensive shortstop with elite speed, and they can help him be, he's a very good contactor. He's a good hitter, just not a power hitter. They can add a little pop to that game. Like this could end up being a very good pick. But you know what? Nobody ever really knows. You read draft analysis from previous drafts, and people talk glowingly about people like Kyle Drabeck, and you pick a guy, and what's his name? I can't remember the guy's name. Guy the White Sox drafted in the same year that the Giants took Buster Posey. Crazy hair, ended up playing about a decade. I should probably know his name. I think he did some stuff with Locked On during the postseason a couple years ago. Gordon Beckham. These guys are supposed to be elite, and then they turn into, some guys don't even make the big leagues. Other guys, don't turn into big stars. It's really hard drafting players. So we'll have to wait and see, but you like the tools at least. And, that's why they went shortstop. I also think that, and this part, Billy Gasparino, the Dodgers scouting director, didn't confirm, but everybody suspects because Kellon Lindsey wasn't expected to be drafted quite that high, Dodgers can probably sign him for under slot value, meaning every draft pick has a specific amount slotted to it. Here's how much you should pay this guy. And it's up to the teams and the players to agree on an amount. But if the Dodgers can pay him for less than he's slotted for, then they have that extra slot money to spend on other guys. So that could mean they're maybe thinking about drafting guys who are currently planning on going to college. So other teams are shying away from them. So maybe they get a first round talent in the third round, or a third round talent in the seventh round. So guys, we'll have to wait and see the whole draft before we really judge it, and then we'll have to see how things turn out after that. But you know what? There's things to like about Kellon Lindsey for sure, and I'm excited to see what they can do with him, what they can help him turn into. That's going to do it for me for today. Like I said, no games for the Dodgers for like the rest of this week of episodes. There won't be games to talk about. We'll be talking about the Home Run Derby with Teoscar Hernandez, talking about the All-Star game on Tuesday night. Obviously, we will talk about trade deadline stuff, but you know what? We'll have fun talking Dodgers, and the way the Dodgers have been playing lately, maybe it'll be more fun to talk Dodgers when they didn't have a game, so we don't have to talk about a frustrating loss like we have so much lately. But I'm optimistic. Dodgers are going to be okay. I'm just excited to see how they end up okay, what additions they make, what subtractions they make, all of that stuff. So let's all enjoy rooting for Teoscar Hernandez in the Home Run Derby. Root for him to stay healthy and not ruin his swing. You know how I feel about that. And that'll do it for me for today. Thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube. Go beyond the podcast to become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text directly with us. Just a few bucks a month. Free 14-day trial. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSince91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open there. By the way, I did figure out the setting so that you actually can DM me. Apparently, at some point, Twitter set everybody to only let verified people DM me. And I never set that setting, but I did turn that off. So you can't. My DMs are truly open now. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message at 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. when you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.